Hi, and welcome back to everybody. Again, we're in Patriarchs and Prophets right now to give us some more insight about creation. And we've been reading about Adam and Eve being tested before they could be eternally secure, and how the same thing is going on here with us because of sin. And we have to, God has to find out who we're going to serve. And if we're going to serve Him, then we'll be allowed in heaven. And if not, then we won't go to heaven. We'll be eternally separated from Him by death. So let's continue reading here and get some history about what has been going on at the beginning of creation with Adam and Eve. Okay, all right. Excuse me. We're at the bottom of page 48, Patriarchs and Prophets. At the very beginning of man's existence, a check was placed upon the desire for self-indulgence, the fatal passion that lay at the foundation of Satan's fall. Okay, so she's saying that self-indulgence, putting self before God, was the problem with Satan that led to his downfall, or him losing his heavenly home. Okay, the tree of knowledge, which was near the tree of life in the midst of the garden, was to be a test of obedience, faith, and love of our parents for God. While permitted to eat freely of every other tree, they were forbidden to taste of this on pain of death. They were also to be exposed to the temptations of Satan, but if they endured the trial, they would finally be placed beyond his power to enjoy perpetual favor with God. Excuse me, and again, that is what will happen with us. If we pass our test during our lifetime that He's given us here on this earth, we will have perpetual favor with God in heaven. We will live eternally with Him in heaven. Okay? God placed man under law as an indispensable condition of his very existence. He was a subject of the divine government, and there can be no government without law. God might have created man without the power to transgress his law. He might have withheld the hand of Adam from touching the forbidden fruit, but in that case man would have been not a free moral agent, but a mere automaton. Okay, meaning if God would have made Adam not disobey Him, then it would have been against the free will that He gave Adam. Okay, so Adam had to be allowed to make his choice as to whom he would serve. Okay, and God took the risk of Adam not wanting to follow Him by giving him free will, which He's done with us. So we have to be tested as Adam was tested also. Okay. Now, again, He might have withheld the hand of Adam from touching the forbidden fruit, but in that case, man would have been not a free moral agent, but a mere automaton. Okay, a mere robot. Without freedom of choice, his obedience would not have been voluntary but forced. There could have been no development of character. Such a course would have been contrary to God's plan in dealing with the inhabitants of the other worlds. It would have been unworthy of man as an intelligent being, and would have sustained Satan's charge of God's arbitrary rule. God made up of God's arbitrary rule. God made upright. God made man upright, and He gave him noble traits of character with no bias towards evil. Okay, in other words, when God created man, when He created Adam and Eve, they had no evil tendencies. There was nothing of sin in them at all. They were perfect beings. They had no dispensation towards sin at all. Okay, He gave him noble traits of character with no bias towards evil. He endowed him with high intellectual powers and presented before him the strongest possible inducements to be true to his allegiance, to his Creator. Obedience, perfect and perpetual, was the condition of eternal happiness, and on this condition he was to have access to the tree of life. The home of our first parents was to be a pattern for other homes, as their children should go forth to occupy the earth. That home, beautified by the hand of God Himself, was not a gorgeous palace like the homes that we think are grand today. We think a wonderful palace is the best thing that you could ever have. But God says that as far as grandeur is concerned and beauty, it was to be lived in nature, okay, under the beautiful, gorgeous trees and flowers that He created, okay. That was His ideal for man, okay. Men in their pride delight in magnificent and costly edifices and glory in the works of their own hands. But God placed Adam in a garden. This was his dwelling. The blue heavens were its dome, and the earth with its delicate flowers and carpet of living green was its floor, and the leafy branches of the goodly trees were its canopy. Its walls were hung with the most magnificent adornings, the handiwork of the great master artist. And in the surroundings of the holy pair was a lesson for all time, that true happiness is found not in the indulgence of pride and luxury, but in communion with God through His created works. Now, if men would give less attention to the artificial and would cultivate the greater simplicity, they would come far nearer to the answering of the purpose of God in their creation. Pride and ambition are never satisfied, but those who are truly wise will find substantial and elevating pleasure in the sources of enjoyment that God has placed within the reach of all. To the dwellers in Eden was committed the care of the garden, to dress it and keep it. Their occupation was not wearisome, meaning they didn't get tired when they worked, but pleasant and invigorating. God appointed labor as a blessing to man, to occupy his mind, to strengthen his body, and to develop his faculties. And if we stop and think about it, I feel a lot better when I'm working than I do if I'm just idle and have nothing to do. And I think a lot of you might feel the same, okay, especially if there's work that we enjoy doing. Okay, we can just work, with no problem. We don't really get tired. But Adam and Eve didn't get tired because their work that they did not have sin attached to it, like our work does with us today, okay? We're sinful beings, and we get tired, okay? But they didn't, and they enjoyed their work. In mental and physical activity, Adam found one of the highest pleasures of his holy existence. And when, as a result of his disobedience, he was driven from his beautiful home and forced to struggle with a stubborn soil to gain his daily bread, that very labor, although widely different from his pleasant occupation in the garden, was a safeguard against temptation and a source of happiness. Okay? And as we mentioned a few minutes ago, God says that work was a blessing for us, is a blessing for us. It keeps us from getting ourselves in trouble, from causing problems for other people, and it keeps our minds occupied in a healthful way. Okay? So work was a blessing, and work should be a blessing for us today. But because of sin, we're having difficulty even going to work every day. And we're looking for work that's not really work anymore, okay? But more like recreation, all right? So let's take a minute and we'll be right back.